They're taking out whole buildings with these cruise missiles.
It was a new kind of war. The United States and Great Britain today gave up the idea of winning a second UN resolution authorizing a war against Iraq. So tonight, President Bush will go on national television where he will deliver a final ultimatum to Saddam Hussein. Monday, March 17th, the battle lines were drawn.
Saddam Hussein and his sons must leave Iraq within 48 hours. Their refusal to do so will result in military conflict, commenced at a time of our choosing.
It was 4 a.m. local time when Marines here at Camp Shoup gathered around a television to hear the president's speech.
Their refusal to do
We gave them a return feed so they could watch.
Today, there is a new sense of urgency among the Marines. They may be headed north. Most training schedules have been called off now. Non-essential equipment is being stored.
Saddam and his sons say they will not leave Iraq. American forces on the Iraqi border are on short notice to move out in what now has been officially labeled Operation Iraqi Freedom.
With many here now believing war is imminent, they are fine-tuning their weapons and today mapping out battlefield plans with rocks and sand, key objectives marked by bottles of Tabasco sauce.
At the 101st Forward Air Refueling Point, last-minute zeroing of gun sights on Apache attack helicopters.
More force, more pressure.
And other preparations, too. A class on how to deal with prisoners of war, taught by a New Orleans policeman called up in the reserves. Soldiers of the 101st today, ready to go to war, singing a song from World War II. We have a rendezvous with destiny.
They experience to be so close to Iraq with the frontline troops as they hear their commander-in-chief tell them that war is imminent. But for many of these soldiers who've been here up to 6 months, it was exactly the order they'd been waiting for.
It's in there a long time training. This is our job. And I think it's very possible, you know. It's good.
Do you have some trepidation about it?
A little bit. I'm sorry.
It's okay, no, it's fine. Tell me what's going through your mind right now as you're thinking about it.
Just my family, my wife.
Commanders were preparing the troops psychologically for what may lie ahead. Most here have never seen war. Many are teenagers.
It's normal to feel a lot of uncertainty in what we're about ready to do.
As the build-up to war intensified, tension grew in the Kuwait desert. NBC's embeds had become friendly with many of the young soldiers who would soon be heading into harm's way.
Out of that 900, and I can tell you now I know probably 200 of them by first name.
But as the clock on President Bush's 48-hour ultimatum wound down, the prevailing feeling was one of impatience.
Their mood was, let's get going already. Let's get this thing over with. They wanted very badly, as they would all say, I want to go north, I want to go south. Either one, just get me home.
And after a while, you started feeling the same way. Let's do this thing now or go home, because the sitting around was driving everybody batty.
They're very enthusiastic, raring to go. We're with what's called the Raging Bulls Tank Company of the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division, and we are standing right on the Iraqi border.
As they wait, they are exposed to Saddam Hussein's missiles and possible chemical attacks. NBC's Dana Lewis tonight with the 101st Airborne. Dana.
Roller coaster day for troops out here in the desert. The near constant whine of sirens forcing us to don these masks, come out to the bunkers as we are now. This siren just went off about 10 minutes ago and we're sitting here waiting for an all clear.
I really found it difficult to sit in there and watch some young soldiers who actually had tears in their eyes as you look through the glass eyepiece on their masks. It was very difficult to sit through those drills, and not just one of them, but sometimes you'd get 3 in 1 hour.
It was incredibly frightening the first time. I remember putting the gas mask on. I remember hearing my labored breathing through it. I could even hear my pulse in my ear.
In the Kuwait desert, an American armada of military power surging to the north through miles of open desert toward the border with Iraq. Convoys miles long and stretching to the horizon of tanks and armored assault vehicles, bristling with heavy weapons and thousands of warriors from the 1st Marine Division, moving into position, ready to attack.
Aboard the aircraft carrier Constellation in the Persian Gulf, a pep talk for war.
When the president says go, look out, it's hammer time.
Air raid sirens.
Wednesday, March 19th, 9:33 p.m. NBC News is first on the air. The control room at NBC News headquarters in New York.
Break us in. Here we go. Break us in. We're on the air.
Target Iraq. Here is Tom Brokaw.
Good evening, everyone. It has been an evening of tense expectations. The 48-hour deadline for Saddam Hussein to leave Iraq has expired about an hour and 30 minutes ago now. And we have reports that American warplanes could be in the air. We're going to go to Peter Arnett, who is now in Baghdad, where it is early Thursday morning, and air raid sirens are sounding across the capital city. Peter, what are you hearing and what are you seeing?
Well, about 30 seconds ago, Tom, the sounds of several planes flying over the city and what seemed to be explosions in the distance.
Just give me shots of Baghdad. Show me it.
The war was underway, launched with carefully choreographed airstrikes intended to wipe out the Iraqi regime. President of the United States.
Fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
U.S. officials are telling us now, they confirm what we suspected, that Saddam Hussein himself was the target of tonight's airstrikes, that F-117 stealth bombers and as many as 40 Tomahawk cruise missiles fired from U.S. naval ships in the Persian Gulf were aimed at Baghdad tonight. It's still too early to tell, according to officials, whether in fact this airstrike was successful.
In the Kuwait desert, tens of thousands of troops moved out, beginning the 300-mile trip north to Baghdad.
It starts at dawn. There's a full moon and the sun coming up at the same time, soldiers marching in.
I don't have to tell you guys, I know your company commanders all the way down through the chain of command. I told you. Guys, we're going to war. Oh!
I looked around and I was struck by how young the faces were all around me. I remember looking at David Bloom that morning, and we looked at each other, our eyes met, and we had tears, and it was just knowing that some of these people wouldn't make it back.
We headed out into the dusk. That is when it sunk in that my country's going to war, my country's about to invade another country, and I'm going along for the ride.
We want to go back to Chip now and see what he can tell us. Chip, can you hear me?
Yes, Matt, I can. Off to my right, I can't tell you how far, a number of miles, there is a huge show of artillery. It is like the finale of a 4th of July fireworks, only with obviously deadly consequences.
It was extraordinary, and when we finally crossed the border, we were just cruising. And I poked my head up out of the AAV, the track, the amphibious assault vehicle that I was riding in, and the roar of these machines was absolutely terrifying because there were so many of them and they're all so loud.
It's the most uncomfortable ride you could possibly imagine. They cram about anywhere from 15 to 20 people in this small tin can, and everyone is standing on top of each other. Traveling in an amphibious assault vehicle is like being inside a trash can and being dropped down a flight of stairs.
You hear about the tremendous distances that U.S. troops have traveled, but you have no idea how big the battle space is until you see it from the air. I had a chance to go with a CH-46 of the Red Dragon Squadron. We went over the border from Kuwait into Iraq, gunners ready for incoming fire, which hit helos regularly. Out the rear door, 2 oil fires are burning.
Our first daytime flight, it was just the most staggering sight you could imagine. As you came up over the Kuwaiti border, just hundreds of miles of road with the tanks, Amtraks, trailer trucks, fuel trucks. There would be 6-lane highways, all the traffic going in one direction, all making their way at great speed.
But the 101st Airborne and Dana Lewis were still waiting for the order to leave Kuwait, feeling frustrated and vulnerable to Iraqi missile attacks.
I think the troops really started to feel that they were sitting ducks, and they just wanted to get it underway. They were anxious to cross the border.
I was going to say, how are things going, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. What's going on there right now?
Well, Matt, this is the third alarm that has gone off today. We had, starting at 1 o'clock this morning, we've had missiles fired into the Kuwaiti desert not far from these camps where many of the American soldiers are getting ready to go into Iraq. And, of course, you know, some of them we are asked to don these gas masks depending on where the missile lands. This one, it may be that it was landing upwind, and so here we are with our gas masks on.
For other reporters, the start of the conflict was disappointing. At the last minute, U.S. military officials prevented NBC News correspondent Tom Aspel from accompanying a special operations unit on its secret mission into Iraq.
We spent the next 12 hours flying back to Germany. And then we sat in Germany feeling sorry for ourselves, and then the war started, so we're watching it on a huge screen in TV. It's looking great. It's looking exactly what the war was supposed to look like. But we're not there. It was really, really disappointing.
Good morning. Rolling toward Baghdad. U.S. troops are on the move through the desert in southern Iraq.
But few viewers who tuned in to NBC's Today Show were disappointed. They saw something unprecedented in war reporting. David Bloom reporting from the Bloommobile as he traveled with the tip of the U.S.-led Spear.
We were with the 315 Infantry of the 3rd Infantry Division, which was the lead force going into Iraq for this huge division of 20,000 soldiers and 250 tanks, hundreds of Bradley fighting vehicles. What they did was they first spent about a half an hour hitting 2 Iraqi observation posts with artillery.
Iraqis began surrendering even before U.S. troops crossed the border. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell joins us tonight from Goddard. Kelly?
Good evening, Tom. The first report came into U.S. Central Command from what I'm told is a young Army captain in the field. His account, Iraqi soldiers were coming toward him across the Kuwaiti border in small numbers. In 2 separate incidents, first 15 Iraqi soldiers, the second 2 more. They gave themselves up voluntarily to Kuwaiti forces and to the Army's 3rd Infantry Division.
Turn around, kneel down.
Iraqis started pouring out, hands up, ready to surrender.
But what was Saddam Hussein's fate? Hours after the initial strikes designed specifically to take him out, these pictures appeared on Iraqi television.
Some U.S. officials wondered whether the subdued man with the unfamiliar glasses, reading listlessly from a lined pad, was actually Saddam or a double. Tonight, some analysts believe this is Saddam, but think the message may have been taped before the first air raid. So the question remains, is Saddam dead or alive?
You can only imagine how frustrating this is to American intelligence and to the leaders all the way up to, of course, including President Bush. But they do not know definitively whether or not Saddam Hussein did survive.
And what had happened to shock and awe? The overwhelming air assaults on Iraq expected to launch the war.
The Pentagon's campaign was originally dubbed Shock and Awe, but could be called today Shock and Pause, as the U.S. military steps back to assess just how far they might have to go to reach their ultimate objective, and that's to drive out Saddam Hussein.